In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in black and white emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special Sunday edition of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Today, our special guest is Ms. Michele Gipson. Michele Gipson is a people-first leader, avid traveler, and community builder who blends her West Coast roots with her East Coast journey. Originally from Seattle, she moved to the DC, Maryland, Virginia area as a young mom with two daughters, where she built a family, friendships, and a career centered on elevating others. Professionally, Michele serves as Senior Vice President of HR and Talent Acquisition with deep expertise in the intelligence and Department of Defense community, particularly in IT and cybersecurity. She has also worked with clients across industries, from law firms to manufacturing companies, to name a few, and even served as assistant director with her local police precinct, partnering closely with the Maryland Police Department. Outside of work, Michele is most passionate about giving back. She spent 16 years as HOA president, founded the Little Black Dress Society to bring women together or for self-care and connection, and created The Spot, supporting people of talent, a youth mentoring program launched through a business partnership with Starbucks. She's also an avid gardener and international traveler with friends and family around the globe. At her core, Michele loves sharing stories and life experiences through engaging conversations. She inspires change by helping others explore big ideas and creating a welcoming space for connection, growth, and learning. Inviting conversations, real stories, and big ideas, Michele Gipson creates spaces for connection, growth, and inspiration. She brings that same authentic, inviting presence to every conversation, with every conversation sparking insight and endless possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, Michele Gipson. Hello?
Hi. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. How's it going?
How are you? Is there anything you'd like to add to
I'm
your
good.
bio?
I'm good. Hanging in there.
Is there anything you'd like to add to your bio before we get into the show?
I actually, sure. Now that I'm in Washington State and I have heavy involvement in with the police department, I decided to join one of Washington State's community police academy here in Kent. So it just started last week. It ends the first Tuesday in December. So I'm pretty excited about that, to learn a little bit more what the police community does in this area and then how I can help.
Well, I tell you, it's always good to see the community engagement because that means a lot, especially when we're talking about underserved and marginalized communities. And I want to thank you for those people that have not thanked you yet for what you're doing.
Thank you.
So as what we're going to do first is I want to jump into your entrepreneur journey. And when we talk about this, what I want people to get, the understanding of you is, you as a business leader, your motivations, challenges, and your defining moments. So, can you tell us what inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
So my career started early. I worked with the bankruptcy court, Chapter 13 trustee. So I worked in Seattle, and then I worked in California when I moved there. And after that, I ended up in the insurance industry. So I was at Blue Shield for 18 years and became a licensed agent, was in the marketing department, and then led a team. And then when I moved to the East Coast, I was at the Blue Shield there, and then went to a few other companies. And I wanted to transition myself from the insurance side of the world into get more into HR. So I took classes. I challenged quite a few so that I can advance my getting my degree. And so when I was doing I had to, when I challenged, I had to write like a biography, a timeline of the work that I did. And I actually saw that I was doing a lot of work in recruiting and in human resources. So since I didn't have that particular background, I started to become an independent consultant contractor so that I can gain more knowledge. And then once not only that, but to network, understand the industry. And so once I felt that I was pretty well diverse and accomplished in that area, I decided to start my own consulting company. And with my connections through my contracts, I was able to gain contracts with people that I worked with before.
So, can you describe the first business venture you ever launched?
The one that I have now, which is Strategic HR Outsourcing Solutions.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Okay. So, what does entrepreneurship mean to you beyond profit?
It's dictating my own schedule. I am able to, pretty much pick and choose which clients I work with. They have to have the same values as I do, especially around valuing diversity and equity and inclusion. That's a big thing for me. It allowed me to have a work-life balance because I'll never forget one client that I had. They had a big workload. They said they worked some Saturdays. And I told them, in order for me to take this contract, I don't work weekends. And I don't really work a lot of evenings, and mainly because I had young kids. But I told them if I didn't have a good process in place that afforded me to not work long hours, then there's something wrong with the process. But I had to, it allows me to set boundaries as well, which I was really proud about that, doing that, because I used to work long hours until my daughter told me she didn't like my job. So I had to reevaluate what I was doing, so, and how I was doing things.
So, just in thinking about that, because something what you just said in that last answer, which I think is really, really important. Can you tell us how does the work in you deciding to create your consulting firm, how does that relate to your work in the community, to community engagement?
So, like for now, my with strategic HR, I love mentoring. I love career coaching, so that's a lot what I do. And so a lot of my work was being done at Starbucks. So I would sit inside Starbucks and actually do interviews, review resumes, meet with clients. And I was actually doing my interviews inside Starbucks. And so I saw a lot of youths that were going in there. so I was kind of, ascertaining, like, looking at, okay, well, are they being productive in here? Are they needing a little bit more guidance on how to act in public? I mean, it was a variety of things. And so I was selected by LinkedIn to, as an executive, to be a part of different launches. And so Starbucks was launching a mentorship program, connecting with Coppin State University was one of theirs, and then Baltimore City Community College. They were doing a test mentoring with people in the community and the colleges. And so I was one of the individuals selected to be part of that launch. And, I said, and it was, a lot of it was mentoring, interviewing, mock interviews. And because there was a Starbucks in my community right across the street from a high school, I contacted the director, that executive director over that, and a variety of Starbucks, and said, hey, why are we not reaching out to this high school and starting a program for mentoring? And so from there, I partnered with Starbucks, and it's been going for 10 years. So I just saw a need in the community. Yes, that's great starting them at a college level, but I'm a strong believer in starting them younger and, helping them with their career, helping them with college entrance, and just being a good person in society, and just helping them with adulting. That's the new word that they taught me. I'm Miss Gipson, I'm trying. I'm trying this adulting thing. They still contact me from high school. Now they're out in the work world, and it just makes me feel good. So I just saw that impact and decided to continue with that, because I teach them how to interview, resume writing. I teach them how to start a business, and if they actually want to go further, then we do the second part. I teach them personal. Financial literacy. There's a two-part series to that. We do an etiquette class. A lot of them do the debutante cotillion with a friend of mine that was back in Maryland. I have to figure out here. So I teach them different things that will help them strive as individuals, and then as they go into their adulthood.
So, how do you define success in your career?
As I define success, not just making money, because a lot of times I don't make the money that I should be, because I'm not greedy with my clients, because then they become repeat customers. But I define success when my customers are happy and when they feel like they're successful. So when I impact and hit my customers' bottom line, that's when I feel successful.
I'm going to tell you, I love that. And I love that for the very reason of, how you just broke that down, because I am the exact same way with my clients. I'm not trying to rob you and send you to the poorhouse. I'm just here to
Right.
create the longevity and to keep that moving and to keep it flowing also in that process of that learning process. So if you could just tell us what made you or what gave you the idea to create your business success based on that model.
I think I've always been, I'm always, I'm told I'm a people person. I love helping people. I help people in the community. Uh, you know, I see a need somewhere, and I always step in, and I'm always in the back end, because I don't like to be on the forefront and people giving me pats on the back, or I don't need to be in the newspaper. I let others be on the forefront and get the kudos and congrats. So, I think it's just me as a person. I've always been that way growing up, helping others. And so, you know, when I see that need and I have an impact, or I drive the person to the right place and they come back and just say that made a difference. That's just been carried out throughout my whole life, even with my family as well.
What were some early obstacles you faced, and how did you overcome them?
Um, my biggest obstacle, and actually what kind of drive me to leave Washington, part of the reason, I didn't know how to set boundaries and I didn't know how to say no. Um, in my work, in with friends, with family, I felt like I was drained. I was starting to get overwhelmed, and trying to help everyone, and didn't know how to keep that balance and say no. So after a while, I looked at how is it going to impact my kids, and then how is it going to impact me in the long run. And me pushing back was not, oh, I'm not going to gain anything from it, but how was it going to help me keep my balance? So I had to really focus on work-life balance and self-care. That and so even till this day, I even have on my calendar, after this, I have my self-care Sunday. That's giving my own self my pedicure, my red light treatment, whatever I need. I set that time to do my self care, or even if it means me take myself to dinner. So, if anything, I cherish that, and I feel if anything is going to impact that and take me away and take me off my personal journey, then I have to set boundaries.
How has your identity as a Black woman shaped your entrepreneurial path?
So in the HR world, coming up, I noticed that there weren't many people of color, especially women of color, in that. And in the insurance industry, I was always chosen to speak, and I had to educate people because they would see me in person and say, "Oh, I thought you were white." So I I grew up like, okay, and I had to ask my mom, how do I respond to that? Because she was in the Black Panther, she was a customs officer, she was EEOC. I mean, talk about Black power. I grew up with that, but then it's kind of bizarre because growing up, I went to Catholic school, and then I went to all girls school. And the schools I was at, there were only in my class only one, two, three. There were only five African Americans, and that's it. So, even going to camp, I just growing up, and I'm like, I was a little confused. My mom is all Black power, but she's sending me to these schools, and sometimes I was the only Black in the whole entire school. So, I didn't have to fight for my identity, but I commanded respect, and I learned how to do that growing up. I wasn't a fighter. You can call me the N word all you want, but I kept track. I remember who, and then when it was time, I would talk to the proper people and say, this is what I've been going through. And I did that as a young kid. And then I think it was seeing my mom as an advocate. So I learned how to find my place and command it growing up, especially as a woman of color. And I teach people, and I tell them, you walk in, you don't have to walk in like you own the place, but you walk in like you belong. And that's important. And so I've always done that, even till this day.
So, as we mentioned this about identity, what are some things that you can share with the audience that you think is probably some good tips that they should maybe take to measure when those situations occur to those that might not handle situations like you did?
So I'm always very transparent. Um, and it's funny, people are like, oh, the Scorpio in her is coming out. Or they say, oh, the East Coast in her is coming out. But I'm very, I'm, I'm very professional, and I don't intimidate. But if people get intimidated about it, then that's on them, because I know how I present myself. But if I don't like something, or if I don't like the way somebody is saying something, and I tell them, don't take offense and don't take it personal, but I just want to, kind of educate you and let you know that type of statement, how it could come across and how it's coming across with me. And I recently had that situation, because I was a victim of a hate crime recently. And it took a lot for me to stand my ground and break down the barriers, because they were pretty much, oh, just go get an anti-harassment order. I said, no, she's calling me a black N and saying that she's going to kill me, and I'm an N. And I said, and then she followed me and stalked me. So no, it's beyond that. It's a hate crime. And so I had to push for that. And so then, finally they did what they needed to do, but I spoke to the prosecuting attorney, and I didn't like what he was saying. And I told him, and I said, well, I hate to say I'm going to have to disagree with that, and this is why. And he got defensive about it. And the terms that he used, like, oh, aggressive or something. And I said, well, I want to caution you and, give you a little feedback. And I said, because as a woman of color, the words that you are using is a stereotype. And it's something that I don't accept. And I said, and I know that you don't mean any harm, but just to educate you. And I wanted to say, especially a person in your position, I'm the victim. And I had to remind him of that. So it's just a matter of standing your ground. And sometimes you just don't worry about if you're going to hurt somebody's feelings. It's, it's about you. And, when you stand your ground, you're doing it, and you have to learn how to just advocate for yourself.
So, what role does innovation play in your business strategy?
Innovation as far as what, as far as like moving it to the next level, or?
Yes, how you being innovative and creative in your business to have it do what it's doing and to get bigger and better here. How do you strategize with the innovation?
So I I stay abreast of what's going on in the industry. I'm a member of SHRM, Society for Human Resources Management. I used to be a board member when I was in Maryland. And, so I always look at what the newest and greatest tools are out there. I learn and educate myself about it. And if I see somebody else is using it, I network and have a strategy call to see if that's something that would fit in what I'm doing to elevate, my business. I do a lot of networking, and sometimes I'm at these networking events. These people may not be anywhere what I'm doing, but I listen and figure out how I can use it in my business, and then, take my business to the next level.
So, how do you balance creativity with sustainability in your ventures?
So I guess my creativity is based on my client. I I kind of shift depending on what the client's needs are, and then I will, because what I do is I do a SLA, a service level agreement, and find out what they're looking for, and then how they can do bigger and better things. And so by me doing that, it kind of brings my business up to another level as well. And I get creative that way. So it's, like I said, it just depends on my business. I mean, the customer that I'm serving, because I can set up all this fancy stuff, DEI stuff and, follow the norm. But I really say, okay, this is my black and white platform, but what do you need? And what do you need from there? Because part of my business, I do have a training university. And so I have my business say, this is what I have, but is there anything specific that you need? What are you looking for? And then from there, I will create a training platform that they need. So it's really custom on the business. And then when I custom that, it kind of brings me up and create.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was gonna say it sounds like you customize all of your services for your clients for what their needs are. Because I think that that's really special because what a lot of people do, especially those in the service industry, is they like to give folk all of this stuff that they don't need.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
they're charging people all this money, but they're not even using or needing these things here. And so that's really,
Exactly.
I really like that.
Yeah, because Charles, when customers say, "Well, what do you offer?" And I'm like, "Well, it's based on what you need. What are you looking for? What are you looking to elevate?" And I may be in a meeting and overhear a conversation, and if I feel I have that skill to help them, I
Mhm.
say, hey, this is what I can offer to you, and I always say no extra charge. And like a mentoring program. This one company wanted a mentoring program, and they didn't know where to begin. I said, I've done plenty of those. No extra charge. Who do I sit with at the table and get one going? And so that's what I do.
Mm. So, what's one lesson you wish you had learned earlier in your career?
Um, so I was at Blue Shield, like I said, for 18 years. Well, 15 in Seattle, and then 3 years in Maryland. And when I left Blue Shield, that was like family. It was, we had a large number of employees, but it was more the dynamic of the company. They were employee centered, so employees have the opportunity to speak and impact changes. They surveyed employees. And so you felt a part of the company. You felt like the company belonged to you. And that's kind of, beside the bankruptcy court, that's kind of where I grew up as well, in my career. So when I moved to the East, when I went to the East Coast, first, I'll be honest, it was a culture change for me. It was a huge culture change. And so I was looking for that same dynamic family. So in the beginning, I kind of struggled looking for that same exact company, and it doesn't exist. And so I said, I had to. So I struggled with companies, and then I think too that's kind of made me like, well, I'm going to become my own employer and make it for people that work with me, create that same environment that I've been looking for. So I struggled a lot in the beginning because it wasn't where I came from. And so it took me a while to figure out, you know what, you're not going to find it. Look for different things, and then see how you can impact and maybe make that change in the company, but don't expect them to be there.
So, how do you mentor or support emerging entrepreneurs?
So I do have this thing called, I created a thing how to start your own business. And so when people are saying, hey, I want to start this business, or I have this business. And I'm like, oh, okay, good, great. And they said, but I need help. And I said, you have your business plan. Did you register? Do you have your EIN? And I found that a lot of people feel just because they call, they're making a t-shirt and they call it XYZ, they started a business. I tell them that's not really a business. So let me get you started with, the fundamentals that you need. And I asked and I said, do you want to elevate a little bit more? And, this is what I can do for you. So I do meet with a lot of people one-on-one that want to start their business. And it's funny, they said, oh, I guess her really didn't have a business, And I'm like, don't use, at your gmail.com when you're, going after business. Create a, a business website and, create a professional email. And don't put on there, love you more, have Donald Duck at gmail.com, so I, tell them, I look at, and I don't criticize them, but I tell them, okay, well, this isn't going to attract people. This is what you want to do and why. And then from there, I just take baby steps with them and see if they're ready for the next level. And they still they contact me and say, okay, well, I'm looking at changing, what are the steps that I should take? So I don't try to take over their business. I just see where they're at, see what they need to fix to get where they're at. And then once they've done all that, find out, now are you ready to go to the next step? I don't overwhelm them because it can be very overwhelming.
What's a moment in your career that felt like a breakthrough?
When I left my last permanent full-time position as a manager in HR and recruiting. And I ended up having to leave because I got really sick. So I was, in and out the hospital and had to focus on my health and staying alive. And so then when I got out, I, didn't want to, it gave me an opportunity as I was healing to determine, I don't want to go back in corporate America. I was a consultant and then I became a permanent employee when the government was taking back a lot of funds. And so it impacted us contractors. And then I found myself going back in permanent. No, I was temp. No, I was contracting and they convinced me to go perm. That's what happened. And so, but I didn't want to go back to that world again because I didn't like what they were doing, a lot of illegal stuff. So I decided, let me, again, reach out to the people that I worked with before. And come to find out, one guy left this big organization and went to another one. And I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm launching my business. Within that 1 year, I had contractors, I had a consultant, I had 2 employees. Which I've never had staff like that. And I ended up making a $500,000 my first year.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I made a lot of money. And yeah, it was phenomenal. And it was a big company in Texas. And, I went out to visit with them and I spoiled them, whatever they needed. And after I made all that money, anything for them. Really didn't. If a manager said, I really don't have a big budget, I'm like, okay, well, I can negotiate my price for you. So that was a big breakthrough for me because that was a phenomenal company that I worked with. I mean, a big one.
So how do you stay grounded while leading and growing?
Oh, you kind of broke up. Did you say, how do I stay grounded as leading and growing?
No, how do you stay grounded while leading and growing?
Oh, okay. Well, I have this, I always believe in staying very humble. because I feel the higher power can take any skill away from you in a heartbeat. So I, I look at my wins as success and just a motivation to keep going. I've never been one to be cocky or arrogant or flashy, although I like dressing nice and I like nice things. But I don't brag. I guess I stay humble and I celebrate my successes in silent or with the staff, and so, and then as I'm growing, I make sure I contributed to those that help me grow, whether it's the consultants. I've had 6 consultants work with me before because I had a lot of high level positions that were challenging. And then I had a graphic designer and then an admin assistant. So I've never taken the glory and the praises. I help elevate them and always put them on the forefront. So I think that's always helped me to stay grounded because the carpet can be pulled from underneath you at any time. And because I think when people aren't grounded, sometimes without knowing, they step on other people's toes and put other people down. And that's just not me. That's not the person I am.
Right. So, what's the biggest risk you've taken professionally?
Um, Pushing back on arrogant white men in corporate America. I'm going to keep it real. And there was this one guy at a huge company, huge defense company, over the cybersecurity team. He was pretty high up. And he was, I felt like he was very belittling to me. And I felt it was because I was a Black female. And because I think I was the only one in my position at that level. And he was just really very rude. And it's like I either risk confronting him and possibly losing my contract or sit back and let him continue to try to intimidate me and talk down, belittle me. I'm not one for taking anybody to belittle me. And so I had a very candid, professional conversation with him and told him things. And I presented it not from how he's making me feel personally. I told him things how he was making me feel from a professional standpoint. And then I had to break things down to him from an HR perspective. So I didn't do it over the phone. I didn't do it by Zoom. I knocked on his door and said, now we could, come to an agreement now of how this relationship is going to be going forward, or we can get the higher HR people involved. So I gave him a choice because you know what? Honestly, I think it was more a female because I found that other women had problems with him. And so when I say he became my BFF after that, we were at job fairs. He said, I want to make you guys, let's make sure Michele has everything she needs. And, if you need anything carried in. When I arrived at the job fair, he would always come up and went out as like, hey, there's Michele, hey, I'm glad this is going to be a success for me. So after that, he became more respectful. We went out to lunch. We went to a happy hour. And he said, you're one tough cookie, and I respect that. Mm-hmm. And I said, thank you. And then I told him, and let's not let that happen again. you know. So yeah, but that there, I was taken back because I've never been treated like that before. I've been across around some people that were, inappropriate, but he was, oh my God, I'll never forget him.
Hmm. So, I mean,
Now I might have to check on him.
so can you tell us, like, in just in your professional career, just overall, how many times have you had situations like that when it comes to white men?
So my very first encounter is when I started at Blue Shield. I was in marketing, and so I was the lead over the marketing team. The people that was inside in sales, and so I had an agent that went. We went to lunch, because they always, we would always go to lunch and do things together. And we went to lunch, and he told me he's never been with a Black woman before, and it's always been his fantasy. And so I know that exactly that. Let me tell you. And I sat there and I said, "Oh, okay, all right." And and I said, "Okay." And I said, "Well, I'll see if I have any friends that would be interested in meeting you." I had to. I felt so uncomfortable, and then he wanted me to let him know if any businesses call that didn't have a broker or agent representing them to get their insurance. And then he said, and then I'll share the commission with you. And I said, okay, well, call me on such and such, and we'll discuss it further. I went to not my manager. I went to the VP in tears. I was so angry. I couldn't even get the words out. And I went directly, we all had a good relationship working there. And so then it got trickled down to my manager and and everybody else. And so for that scheduled time, we turned on the recording and recorded the call. And I didn't approach him and said how he was inappropriate talking to me like that right away. After we recorded his call, I told my VP and other management that I want to have a conversation with him, because I felt that if I didn't talk to him, it was going to be eating up inside of me and maybe affect my future business relationships. So he was like one of the bad ones. And then I had this other guy tell me, you're sending me a lot of females to interview. And I said, well, I'm sending you the best candidate. And he said, and are all of these foreigners? And I said, again, I'm sending you the best candidate. That's a requirement. And he said, well, I want you to start sending me more men. And I said, and that's illegal. And that's not how I do business. And so I had sent him the requirements for discrimination in the workplace and recruiting. And so I sent that to him in an email and said, our business's model does not mesh. And what I need for you to do to keep your business from any legal issues, carefully read the law. And I sent him the law, and I told him all the best. I wasn't doing business with him anymore. Then I had that other gentleman, and then I had my other boss at this other company. They would always want me as the Black female to talk to the Black people when it came to disciplinary. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then one time I was standing next to my VP, and he made a comment about one of the employees behind. And he said, wow, he said, Black women have these wonderful assets. And I said, let's go to your office really quick. And and so I've ran across all type of situations. And I think when I addressed that first situation with that one gentleman, it helped me to confront others going forward. And I still have no problems.
But something, and in just asking that question in general, I think it goes to the point of not just Black people in general, but Black women being scrutinized and harassed in so many different ways. But in the process of all of that, there still seems to be no answer because it still continues. Because had that shoe been on the other foot, then you probably would have been out the door. Or if it's a Black man, he's definitely out the door. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so this is kind of like, which is my lead in for this question here, which is, how do you build legacy into your business model?
So I've asked a few individuals, especially female, what barriers have they ran into? And I tell them this is the time to discuss that because it's just us. And, and I tell them my story to help them feel comfortable opening up and telling theirs. And so, from that, people come to me about situations. I'm referred by other people. And, and they say, I understand that you're kind of the go-to when it comes to this situation. You're the go-to to model, this particular way of doing things. And so I think because I'm always there to help others, that's how I kind of, it's funny. My name gets out there more than my business does. And then sometimes I do have some of my old customers that say, hey, I have a new person here, or I feel like my team doesn't get it. Can you step in and mentor them? And, I'll let them know that, you're going to be taking the lead on a lot of things. And I don't charge them because, and these are Black owned businesses. And, some of them are by Black men, these big IT companies and their clients. And, because I want to see them successful as well. So I, I guess I don't, I'm not out there flashing or anything, but they see that I'm doing a lot of work in the back. And, I tell them anything that I have, it's open, it's shareable. If you want to look at my mentoring program and revamp it for you, you can have it. If you want this deck, you can have it. So I guess I've left my, my legacy pretty much because of my personal reputation that I have and the way that I do things. And then people know that I'm open to helping. And I feel like my process is solid. My relationships are solid. I do check-ins. Even some of the people that are, some of the VPs and people that are laid off, they come to me and say, hey, Michele, I know that you have a solid process, looking at resumes, doing resumes, can you help me out? So, and these are people that I haven't maybe talked to in years, but they still come back. So I feel like I'm doing something out there.
Wow. So what advice would you give to someone starting out today?
I would say, and because I've had people do this, do something, start a business that you're passionate about. Not do something that, oh, this is going to make me money, and you don't know anything about it. Do something that you're passionate about, because when you're doing something that you're passionate about, you're a lot more successful, and you know what you're doing. I could not start a I could not start a like a, I don't know, photography company, because I don't know anything about photography, but I love doing, pictures with my phone. And I feel I do a good job, but I can never start a photography company because I don't know not one thing about cameras. I don't know anything about angles, develop, any of that kind of stuff. And I don't know people in that industry. So, do something that you're passionate about. Take your time. Because things, and don't get frustrated, because starting a business doesn't happen overnight. Just because you have a name, you get this at gmail.com email, and they're calling you on your personal phone. That's not starting a business. You need a website. People need to know, okay, this is a legit business. You have a legit email, you have a legit website, you have a legit phone number. I know like T-Mobile has where you can call their pay $10 a month for another phone number, and it rings to your phone, your main phone. And then if it goes to your voicemail, it's going to go to a business voicemail. So, and that's just $10 a month, or just go out and add another phone line, a phone. But I always tell people, try to have a separate phone than your personal phone, so that you can answer it properly. But I think a lot of people rush to start a business, and then they fail because they don't set it up properly. And I feel that people of color fail to do marketing. I think that's a lot of times the downfall that we have, is marketing our businesses. But again, it's not gonna happen overnight. They just have to be patient.
Well, now as before we transition over to our next part of the work that you do, I want to tell you that I think I want to I appreciate you sharing, your entrepreneur journey in this way, because I think when people can get the real experience and understand what the experience of, let's say, someone like yourself, and how things started for you and how you were able to escalate what you're doing based on how you feel, much as you say, you're passionate about the work that you do. So, I think that's really something that's going to help this audience a whole lot. So let's talk a little bit about your community engagement and impact. And what I want the people to get from this is, your work in civic spaces, your grassroots efforts, and your healing centered leadership. So, can you tell us, what does community engagement mean to you personally? Okay, it's like Michelle just dropped. Let me see if I can get Michelle back in here.
Hey, sorry. It just died down on me. Sorry about that. What was your last question?
I was asking you, what does community engagement mean to you personally?
It's to me, um, personally, is it's well, it's important. I think it helps to build relationships. Um, and when you're engaged in the community, not only it's helping others, but then you can also help make an impact of what's going on around you. I like to I like to know my environment. I like to play a role in my environment because you know, it helps to break down barriers, and you just help to shape the community.
Okay.
I'm a big advocate for that.
So, how did you first get involved in community work?
So I think a lot of it started volunteering at my kids' schools and then creating new programs at the schools. Um, and then from there, you know, because then I got to get to meet the teachers and other parents in the community. And then when I moved to the East Coast, I started a lemonade stand for our little cul-de-sac of community kids. And that was a way to get to know the other kids because, you know, we were new. And then also get to know the parents. And so it's funny because a lot of people didn't know each other until, you know, my kids went knocking on the door asking if the kids wanted to be a part of the lemonade stand. And and then, you know, I started coaching track, cheerleading, and then I started my own youth sports club. Did that to get kids involved, you know, because some of these kids, they may try out for cheerleading or try out for the track team or, you know, some of these sports and don't get in, but everybody was invited into mine clubs. And, you know, so that's when I got started. And then I moved into this other community and I don't know, it was like it was falling apart, but it was because the HOA was lacking. They weren't, you know, pulling people, the houses were just like looking horrific. And we had standards. And so I decided to get on the board to help make a difference. And then from there, our house value went up. I started doing community events for every single holiday. During COVID, because one thing I don't know if I mentioned, I import wine and olive oil from Spain. And so I had this big inventory. Nobody can go out and go get anything, especially wine. So I went around and, you know, it was pouring red wine or white wine for people because everybody was in the house. Maryland was really strict at that time. And so, you know, like I said, it's important because, you know, like now I'm the community leader for my old community. They didn't want me to stop, although I moved. But people were in this group for like 3 years, never knew their neighbors, just saw them online through this gifting community, never knew their neighbors until I start putting things out in front of the house. People start coming, meeting each other, introducing each other. And so then we would go for a happy hour. But to me, it helps people get along. But I think the biggest impact is if you are having an issue with your neighbor, it's easier to approach them about that.
Before we move further, there was two comments here in the comment section. They were from T. I'll put this on the screen. The first one, T said, "Hi." And the second one is, we were talking about barriers. She said that I have some barriers, and I guess she started to comment, but she didn't get a chance to complete it.
Okay.
And so my next question for you is, what's a project or initiative you're most proud of as a community project?
The SPOT mentoring program, the
Yeah.
partnership with the partnership that I have with Starbucks. I started, God, this is our 10th school year. And when I say that it has impacted students, everybody got into college. We got everyone an internship. The parents were appreciative of the program, but the mentors, I was just there as their cheerleader because I didn't have a mentee, so that I can run the program and get involved. But a lot of people, industry leaders, love it, and I've been able to get like Wells Fargo involved, huge law firms involved, some of the legislative politicians involved, police department involved. And because they see that it's impacting our youth and making them better youth, and they became more peers, positive peers to those they go to school with, because then they've been able to either help them or help direct them in the right direction. I still keep in touch with them today, and it just makes me feel so good when one of them is contacting me. Hey, do you have anybody? We have a job that we're trying to fill for a software engineer. Do you know of anyone? Can I send you the job description? I mean, to say she was in ninth grade, now she's working and helping with hiring. I mean, and so it's just been so great. And they also now help with the SPOT program, as they don't necessarily mentor, but they help with delivering some of the things that we do. So that has been my baby. I don't make money. I spend a lot of money on it. And it's just, the kids feel special, especially because it's one-on-one outside of school. It's at Starbucks. Starbucks gives us coffee and pastries and stuff like that. And they have a one-on-one person that sincerely cares about their future. So that has been, and not all of them are straight A students. Some, are in foster care or, having a few issues, but helping them elevate and helping them feel like they belong and that they're important is just so gratifying for me. I will spend my whole life doing the SPOT program and anything that I need to do to help the students be successful.
So, how do you ensure your work reflects the needs of the people you serve?
So I, like, for example, the SPOT program, it's very diverse. There's some students, English is their second language. I just, I asked the mentors, hey, do you see anything extra that we need to do for these students? Some of the students were struggling with studying for exams, or they were very nervous. And so I started I had college students come and teach them studying skills right before each exam. I do a breakfast or a lunch, and we would do that. So again, I just customize it on what I see what the need is, because I have a black and white program. But if I'm hearing stuff in the community, like there was recently back in August, a survey that came out saying 4 of 5 managers of 500 that were interviewed by the U.S. Department of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce said most high schoolers are not ready for the job the job force. So I read that to make sure that my program was on track and then to add anything extra. But the biggest thing was the personal financial literacy. And I said, okay, well, we're good in that area, but that I used to only do one session. Now I'm doing a second session where they can put it in action. I found a bank, which is Wells Fargo. They have a minor program and a teen program where they can actually do a checking account and a Visa debit or a prepaid Visa debit. So we're adding that to the program. So, I just see what the need is, and then I flex. I add certain things, or I may poll or survey these students to see what they need as well.
So, what role does storytelling play in your community work?
Oh, it plays a huge role, because without it, you're just talking. But if you tell them your life experiences, if you tell them, even my kids' experiences, my kids are older. They're 38, geez, going on 39, I think. Yeah, 39. And then the other one is 33. I tell their stories as well. And how we broke down barriers, or, anything. So I can always pretty much relate to anything that someone is saying. And I'm very open about what I'm going through, whether it's from a business perspective, in the workplace, or even a personal perspective. Even health, people see that I have a patch on my arm for my diabetes. And this lady said, "Oh, it's nice to see someone openly, wearing theirs. How do you feel about that?" And and they said, "Why are you wearing it?" So I share my story and I listen to their story, and give them whatever resources they need and phone numbers. Like if it falls off, this is a number that you need to call and get a free one. They didn't know about it. So I think storytelling helps, especially when you're directing them to a place where they can get help with what they need. It encourages them. It helps them to speak about it in their story.
So, how do you navigate systems that weren't built for us?
I'm trying to think of a really good example. So one reason why I got involved with the police department, my old community in Maryland that I used to, that I lived in and that I have property, it started to become predominantly Black. And our police precinct was predominantly white. And they start pulling back on the resources that we needed. And so we start getting more people from the city coming in, breaking into cars, stealing. Starbucks was held up at gunpoint twice. The second time I was actually in there. And the community started to feel like we didn't have the police presence like we used to, which is why people are taking advantage of this. And I used to, and when I first moved there, I'm like, yeah, they're not, they used to sit in the parking lot of the big shopping center, sit inside a Starbucks getting coffee, or sit on this one corner place to have breakfast or have coffee. So I, after that holdup, I mean, that was like the scariest thing, because the guy was standing next to me with a gun. And I can tell he was a young guy. And so I went to the precinct. I'm like, help me understand what's going on. We are experiencing more crime in our community, and the police aren't present. When you call, they take forever, or they don't come. And I'm like, that's not acceptable. And so they directed me to this community guy. Now, he was a Black guy. And I told him, I want to get a report for our neighborhood to find out whether it was a call for service or someone came out. I want to get a report and help me understand this report. So I start looking at the report monthly. And then I met with the captain, because the guy said, "Oh, wow, you want to go high level?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "Because this isn't acceptable. You know, we pay a lot of money for these homes and we deserve." Now, mind you, Green Spring area, oh God, the police are always there. You know, it's like, constantly going, in that area. And so I met with the captain of the precinct and told him my concern and said, "Well, I think I speak on behalf of the whole entire community. This is what we expect." And then I got our uh, politician involved, our for our district, and then this other lady involved. And I told them, this is pretty much the demographics of our community. You can easily come to the meetings and you can see the demographics. And so I said, I want to have a community meeting. And I said, and this is what I expect. I want you there. I want this sergeant there that is over this department, traffic department. I want the chief there. I told him, I want this person there. We had the people from the shopping center that was becoming a big issue. We had those people from Chicago come in, and they were on the panel. And do you know, Charles, kid you not, I got like 800 or more people at this church, this Black church, owned church, let us use their church. It was full. It was packed. And so, a lot of businesses there, they were Black owned businesses. And so I told the businesses, you guys need to be there. You need to be present. And so we can hold these people accountable. So that was a huge meeting. And we start holding them accountable. And then they promised to have more presence. I went to all the different stores in the shopping center and asked, what can the officers get for free here? A lot gave them coffee and pastries. They gave them, they can come in and get a free dinner or a lunch. So, and I gave them a list and said, plaster this and send this to everybody, and we'll put them up and let them know we need you here and we'll feed you and give you something. So that was a big success. And people were very transparent and said, we're a lot of Black owners here. We have a lot of Black homeowners here. We're mid to upper class, and we deserve the same presence and treatment as you do those people down on Green Spring. And so there was a lot of accountability, follow-ups. I started Coffee with a Cop at Starbucks. That was very popular. We did those every quarter. And then I did a check-in with all the other board presidents around to see how they felt was going on in their communities. We only had one apartment building that was there. And Lord Jesus, they had more issues. I mean, those kids were horrible. They had a lot, and that's where a lot of people were coming from as well. So I was able to get and it was the majority African Americans there. And I told them the perception that you're giving us is that, well, we don't care. They're just Blacks and they can figure it out on their own. And Black on Black crime. And so I had an officer assigned to meet with that property manager every single week to see where the problem places were, where the problem kids were, the problem apartments, and they start cleaning house. So that was a huge undertaking, but it was very rewarding because it empowered homeowners and community leaders to hold the police accountable, and then also to, stay in touch with them as well. And so, yeah, it was, and I still keep in touch with that that chief, no, or that captain. He just sent me an email last week. But yeah, so that was a huge thing, huge. I encourage everyone to do something like that.
So we also spoke about Black history because we do Black History 365. And I
Oh,
asked you who was the most influential person in your life or career, and you told me that was Harriet Tubman.
yes.
And can you tell us, when did Harriet Tubman first become a figure of influence for you?
When I moved to Maryland, and my kids' school for Black History Month, they had a school bus. Well, one of my daughter's class, and then my other one with hers. But I went, and the school bus went around to all the landmarks in Baltimore that was impacted by slavery. Um, Over not far from the harbor where Port Discovery is at across, there was a platform that used to be used to sail the slaves that came in on the harbor on the boat. I mean, it was, like I said, it was a culture shock because we just moved there, and I never knew about anything, and they didn't teach anything like that growing up here in, in Washington State, or for my kids. I mean, it was just like mind boggling. I mean, just mind blowing. And just intriguing. And so then I made sure every time someone came to Maryland, they had to go to the Great Blacks and Wax Museum in Baltimore. I said, it's in the hood on North Avenue, but we're going. I said, because it was so much rich history. And so when, and everyone can laugh because I got a chuckle out of Charles, but when I found out about when I my thought of the Underground Railroad was actually a railroad underground, transporting slaves on a train or something, or one of those little train things that have like a little box. I did not know that they had certain landmarks where, like we went to this church, and they showed us where the slaves would, like, they would go through the Underground Railroad. And I'm like, well, what are they talking about? This is a church. And so so I'm like, well, what's an Underground Railroad? How could a railroad be here? And they said, oh, well, Miss Gipson, well, Daniels back then, really what it is are their tunnels. And so here at the church, here's the fireplace, but they would go, it's a tunnel that went to the next tunnel. So that's the Underground Railroad that they're referring to. And then when the slaves would go through, they would light a fire because, to hide the actual tunnel. So so then I started doing a little bit more history about her. I think I was intrigued and just like, this lady is dynamic. That she was getting people out of to freedom, but then she was going back. She had an opportunity to make history, get some people out of to freedom, and then say, hey, we made it, and make a name for herself. But no, she risked her life to go back and continue to get more people out of freedom. I commend her for that. I know that you have the Rosa Parks and on the bus and all that, but that to me was phenomenal because she had an opportunity to be free, but she risked her life to keep going back.
So, what aspects of her legacy resonate most deeply with your journey?
I when I see that there's a need for people, I help them to that next level or get where they need to be. But then I keep going back for more. I get that gratification. I could only circle myself around successful people, get them there, and then we're having a big party and celebrating. But I let them celebrate and keep giving them kudos and keep checking back. But I go back and pull more people up. So I just believe in elevating everyone where I see the opportunity. Not everybody wants to be elevated. I plant a seed. And I tell them that opportunity is there when you're ready. And I'll check in on them, maybe go to lunch. I don't pressure, but I believe in get you up to success, pull more people up there and going back for more. And so I see that's where she's impacted me in that way.
So, can you tell us, how does Tubman's courage inform your approach to leadership?
Uh, you know, just like I approached racist white men in the workplace, I stood up to them and commanded respect. And, I guess that's always been my stance, not only growing up, but also in the workplace. Just, you know, I just looked at her. She just had this certain command, and people trusted her and followed her, knowing it's dangerous along the way. And so I feel that I do that in the same way because it's scary, going that path because it's unknown. You don't know if you're going to be successful or not, but it's there. And I try to just, keep people encouraged to go there.
In what ways do you see her spirit reflected in your work?
Um, I guess because I feel like she never gave up. There's sometimes I used to get discouraged, trying to get new business or, um, getting a contract. But, she never gave up. And I mean, she kept going. And, so I would reflect on, my successes because I feel, she went back, got people back. I'm sure there were more barriers for her and she had to get more paths going along the way. But to me, I feel she looked at what her successes are and, she got people out of slavery, and they were free. And I feel that maybe helped to encourage her more. And not only helped her, but then also knowing that she can get other people in that. So I stay encouraged. Once I feel like I'm overwhelmed, I'm like, okay, do I really want to keep doing this? I have to stop. I really reflect. I do my self-care to clear my mind and just, remind myself, hey, just keep going, you got to keep going, Michelle. So I don't force myself. I have to get myself mindfully ready. And then once I'm there, um, I just keep going.
Wow. I think as we talk about Harriet Tubman, and again, as you mentioned, just your situation in general, that is from dealing to the barriers, then also how you got involved in the work in the community. You know, I think there's a lot of similarities, and I think as you're going through this and you're talking about this, but I'll just say one thing that I see that I think is really, really a tall thing for you is just your ability to reach back and to pull other people forward.
Thank
That's
you.
that's really, really a wonderful thing. Um, what lessons from Tubman's life do you carry into your business decisions?
Um, I always looked at her as a fighter and anything's possible regardless of her color. Um, and I don't know, I felt like that maybe made her a little stronger in the long run and helped her to break down those barriers. And so I feel the same. And when I come across those barriers, I guess I have that attitude, bring it, because I'm ready. And I feel like, those barriers made her stronger and more strong-willed to get where she needed to get, and then get the people where they needed to get to as well. So, um, I feel the same. I look at a challenge, and my grandmother taught me a closed mouth is never fed. And so I do, I keep going. I just, I break down those barriers. I don't let them intimidate me. And yes, if anything, it does make me stronger. And I look at things like, well, damn it, I deserve it just as much as the other person. And I guess I go on with that attitude. And I guess that's where my arrogance comes in. I deserve this too. And I go in with that self-confidence, and if I'm shot down, I'm shot down. Thank you for your time. And here's my card if you need anything else, or think of anything, or if you want to, run an idea by, no charge, give me a call. I always say that, no charge, free of charge. But yeah, I don't let barriers, and I think if anything, it makes me more put my superpowers on, and like, okay, are you really ready for that challenge and to go there with me? So yeah, and sometimes I sit back, and I let people dig their own grave, but that's me building up a case when I need to. But yeah, I just keep going, and I can't begin to tell you. I mean, the fact that they were under the ground and going through, I mean, just it was just amazing, her journey. And I feel like I've been going through the same journey, not only professionally, but personally, in my personal life, because I faced massive racism. I mean, that's a whole nother, to the point I had "move nigger" put on my barn door with my horses. And I mean, it's just, you know, um, I've gone through a lot, but it has not made me hate any other race, but it made me have that command and stance. You're going to respect me, and I belong here.
Yeah. So how do you honor her legacy in your community efforts?
Um, I guess I keep saying elevate, because that's what I feel like she did, is elevated people, whether it's, it was encouraging them if they didn't want to go. Uh, you know, I guess she just had, still, gave them that support. And I guess I still do that in the community. I'm just out there, to support people, let them know these are your options. I'm there to support you. Get to that, get to that point. And, especially with the students, I tell them, you can do it, don't compare yourself to anybody else. It's important to know that you're an individual. Everybody is different, and your success is not dictated by somebody else's success. Um, and some kids, even if they don't want to go to college, I support them working. We don't push people to what we feel is going to be successful. We look at what they feel their journey needs to be and support them along that way as well. So,
And final question for you. What does freedom mean to you in the context of Tubman's legacy? Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today for another wonderful show. I appreciate you all for taking the time to listen to the struggles that Michelle was going through, but how she was able to overcome them with resilience to keep going and to make her life that much better. There's a lot of things that take place or transpire in a lot of people's lives that, people just aren't able to one see or understand. In the case with Michelle, I mean, these things are like just blatantly in your face and they're happening, but we know that they shouldn't. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. We keep having outages here, and it's affecting my internet. So I'm sorry. I remember you ready for the answer to your last question?
Yes.
Okay, so freedom to me, it's funny. I was just having a conversation with my one of my best friends yesterday, and with everything that's going on right now in the world, and um, people are feeling empowered, have a false sense of empowerment, to do what they want, treat people the way they want. But to me, freedom right now is being free of all that, living your best life, being able to walk in a store without being looked at or treated differently, being able to take advantage of grants or funding just like anybody else, and just having the same equal opportunity as anyone else, regardless. And no one is making any judgment based on my skin color and the fact that I'm a female, black female.
So, what are some words of wisdom and encouragement that you would like to give our audience in closing, as well as how to connect with you on your social medias, your website, all of those good things?
So I strongly encourage people to get involved in their community. Um, you don't. It doesn't have to be anything granular, but just know your surroundings and determine how you can make an impact. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know people in the stores and just in the area. Get your name out there that way, and don't be afraid to do it just because of the color of your skin, or the fact that you're a female or black male. You know, people have these biases, and but don't let that dictate how you operate. Um, be fearless. That's the biggest thing. And if you're looking to start a business, you don't know where to start, or if you want to start small, do it where you're passionate. And I used to tell people, uh, do a job that you love and you'll never have to work another day in your life. We lost some people in our some people quit because they were just working to get a paycheck. Work to work not for money, but for your career. Um, the sky's the limit and you just limit yourself. People say, oh, there's a glass door. No, there's not a glass door unless you accept it. So, um, be fearless. That's the biggest thing. And if you want to get a hold of me, I'm on Facebook, but because of my clients, I have to watch people that I connect with because they do look at our Facebook pages. We get, uh, they want to know who's on our page, but LinkedIn um, is a good way of reaching me. My face isn't on LinkedIn, but that's my spelling, Michelle with one L, Michele, and then GIP is in Paul, SON. And you can send me a private message once we connect. And then I'd be more than happy to have one-on-ones and, listen to your story. You can hear more of my story. If you're looking to start a business, I'd be more than happy to help you with that journey. No charge. If you need career advice, if you need your resume looked at, I do that for free. If you need to prep for an interview, I do that for free as well.
Well, I want to thank you, Michelle, for spending this time with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
I think it's been very, very enlightening. And, I think your story is one that has more than resonated with our audience because when we talk about community, we mean community. And when we display Black excellence, we appreciate you for displaying Black excellence here with us today.
Yeah, you're
And
very
so
welcome. Thank you.
these are things that are just very, very important for the people in the community as we here at American Black and White will continue to display Black excellence. So I want to thank you and I want to thank everyone that was out there watching. For those of you that are watching on any of our 8 channels that we broadcast live on, especially our YouTube channels. If you have not yet subscribed and enabled all notifications, I would ask for your support if you would please do that for us, because we definitely know that the message that we have here, as you see the positivity and the resilience of each and every person here that's been on this platform has been about the resilience and making a difference and contributing to the growth of community. I would appreciate you all doing that and coming back to watching us again next week, starting tomorrow, as we have another great show here on American Black and White, as we continue to paint conversations of color on the canvas of America. You all have a great Sunday evening and have a great week going forward starting tomorrow. Thank you again, Michelle, and we will
Yes.
see you guys tomorrow.